Welcome, night schoolers. Tonight we are talking about handicapping stakes races, and one of my dear personal friends in the racing game, the Hammer, Hank Goldberg here. Hank, we've known each other a long time. I always see you at the stakes races. How cool is it to handicap the big races versus the everyday races?
Well, first of all, I don't do a lot of heavy lifting in my job. I mean, they send me to these events, and I remember when I first started going to the track, I was in high school, and I had a friend whose father, or whose uncle rather, was in charge of mutuals in Monmouth, and Uncle Herb. I'll never forget Uncle Herb, and that's how I got involved in this stuff, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I didn't answer your question, but I approach the big races a little bit differently because I'm not looking for an angle as much as I am in the ninth race at Calder or whatever. And what you're looking for here is trying to separate a lot of great horses, and sometimes that's more difficult than trying to find some clue as to why a horse is dropping down or why a horse has a little more speed than another horse. And here, it's difficult in a lot of these races because you're dealing with champions.
You know a lot of the trainers personally. I know over the years you've got a good relationship with the Nick Zitos of the world, and you get some information. How much of the chatter do you listen to and filter into the handicapping part of your game?
Well, you'll find that a lot of those trainers are very confident coming into the big races. So I try to dissect what they say very carefully because I kind of tend to disregard what they say and just go with my own opinion. Bob Baffert once on one of our handicapping shows, Handicap the Handicappers, and Baffert is so sharp. But when he came to me, he said that I look at the recent races and I go by that. And he was right. I'm more of a trip handicapper, and I look to see how horses are developing.
Finally, you handicap a lot of sports, as you said. Compare the sports handicapping to the race handicapping, specifically the big races, because these are like playoff games.
Well, in the playoffs or in football, for example, you have a lot of elements to consider. There's coaching, there's the quarterbacks, there's defenses, there's home field. There's a lot of factors involved that you don't have to contend with in horse racing. What I like about racing is that you can look at riders and you can look at trainers and you can develop trends, and you can also look at track biases, which are really tremendous aids in handicapping. So, in a sense, and you get better odds. So, you can make more money betting horses than you can betting football because you have a lot less of the human element to kill you. And, by the way, there are no zebras in racing, although sometimes those stewards will kill you.
Hank's last bet is always his best bet. We'll see him at the windows again for sure.
Yeah, you know why? One day I was walking to Santa Anita with Jimmy the Greek, and the PR guy from Santa Anita said, "Is this your favorite track?" And Jimmy said, "No, sir." And the guy was taken aback. He said, "What's his?" He said, "The one I'm closest to."
There you have it. Hank Goldberg ready to make his next bet.
Stakes races are interesting. Many of them are graded 1, 2, 3, 1 being the highest. The Triple Crown, obviously, they're grade 1 races. Presumably, those are the best horses. I myself think that too many handicappers look at the grades of the races and just decide that because a horse is in a grade 1, he is much better than a horse in a grade 3. I don't really buy that necessarily. I like to look at each horse individually. And if a horse I'm a big speed figure guy, if a horse runs fast numbers, whether he's running for a 40 claimer, he can run in a stakes race and be competitive in a stakes race if he's fast enough. So I think old school handicappers think that, to win in a graded race, you've got to be in a graded race. I don't necessarily believe that. It's horses' condition, it's how fast they are. And so when looking at graded races, just don't look at, he ran in a grade, he's never run in a grade 1, therefore he's not competitive. I don't believe that. I look at 2-year-old graded races and 3-year-old graded races in a much different light than I do older horses. Because, I think as a handicapper, they're less predictable. 2-year-olds just blossom overnight. So do 3-year-olds. The perfect example is Orb. Orb was a 2-year-old that had some promise. And suddenly, without warning, within 2 or 3 weeks' time, he sprouts wings and becomes this super horse because he just turned 3, almost like a teenager can become a great athlete at 19 years old. Older horses, 4, 5, 6, typically maintain a similar kind of level. But 2 and 3-year-olds in graded stakes, they are the riskiest propositions in racing.
I think a lot of people approach stakes races as though it's some sort of different entity from a regular race, but to me it's not. There's still the same basic handicapping factors that you need to apply in terms of speed, in terms of pace, in terms of aptitude at a distance, in terms of aptitude for the surface. But one of the things that I think is very important is a lot of times people look at what a horse has accomplished in major races over the course of time and maybe apply a little more emphasis on that. And if the horse has started to lose his form, a lot of times those horses still get played very aggressively. And to me, an up-and-coming kind of horse who maybe is coming out of an allowance race but has been maybe lightly raced but is improving, you can often get better prices on horses like that. So that's one aspect of handicapping stakes races that I think can give you a little more bang for your buck.